Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I welcome you all here in this session at TNV Academy. It's a great pleasure for me to introduce our eminent speaker, Mr. Srinivasan Sitaraman, today, who is going to talk to us about context of the organization. As we all know, that context of the organization is the first clause of every ISO standard, and it sets up the base for the effective implementation of management system standards within organizations. In this webinar today, Mr. Sitaraman will discuss this topic in detail, along with some real life examples he has experienced in the industry. Our distinguished speaker, Mr. Sitaraman, has done his post graduation in chemistry from Annamalai University, India. He is a lead auditor in ISO 9001, 14001, 45001, and 50001 standards. He has an industrial experience of around 34 years in field of manufacturing of non-ferrous alloys, lamp components, and primary and secondary batteries, and has worked in countries such as India, South Africa, and Oman. He has been imparting training to a number of organizations, entrepreneurs, and executives on various topics related to ISO standards and their certification and implementation. It was just a brief introduction of our guest speaker today. And now, ladies and gentlemen, please join me in welcoming Mr. Srinivasan Sitaraman. I may request Mr. Sitaraman now to please start the session on context of the organization.
Very good evening to all of you present in this webinar, and thank you to TNV Academy for giving me this opportunity to host this webinar. This is a very interesting topic, context of the organization. This is a new requirement which has come in all the management system standards. So we'll talk about it, and then we'll see what all things we need to have it in the organization as an evidence of implementation of this particular clause. Okay. So also we want to talk about this context of the organization in all the management system standards, how it has been addressed with the high level structure being implemented right from 2013 onwards. So whatever management system standard getting published, all having the similar kind of context of the organization structure. So I just want to show you four important management system standards so that you can understand how unique and how similar they are in terms of structure. So in ISO 9001, which is for quality management system, so you can see there are four subclasses under the context of the organization, class 4, which is what we are going to discuss today. And I also touch upon the significant differences, the salient differences in these particular management system standards. Okay, so this is for ISO 9001. If you look at ISO 14001, this is pretty much same, all the four classes. Just for the scope, here it is QMS, it becomes EMS there. That's the only difference. The rest of them, the interested parties, according to the management system, the interested parties may change. So if you look at ISO 45001, this is for the occupational health and safety management system. Here again, the interested parties, mainly we are addressing the workers and other interested parties. That's why it is specifically mentioned workers along with other interested parties. We don't want to lose out the focus on workers because this standard is for the employees, by the employees, and of the employees. So that's why needs and expectations of them has to be addressed by the organization. So that's why it has been taken into the account in the class 4 itself. Okay, so these are all inputs. And energy management system as per ISO 50001, it is pretty much same. Just wherever management system instead of other management system, it is going to be the scope of that particular management system. Okay, one more thing you need to note here, in the quality management system and its processes under class 4.4 it is mentioned, because the process mapping is laid out in the ISO 9001, because that is the first standard normally organizations go for certification. So already there will be a base available, then they can go on building other management system standards. That's why in other standards, the 4.4, they have not mentioned processes, because processes are already established, mapping is done. So now we are looking at the risk and opportunities and other things with respect to other management systems. Another salient difference which you can notice here is the needs and expectations of workers and interested parties. Along with the interested parties, workers are also introduced in this particular standard. So this is in synopsis. You can see all the four major management system standards have got a similar structure. So when we understand the context of the organization, this will be applicable for all the management system standards. So going forward, so that is why I just gave a brief summary of what is going to be expected from this session. Okay. So now also process approach. We need to understand the ISO from 2000 onwards has adopted process approach. So that is a plan, do, check, act. So the whole standard has been put into this structure. So this is taken from the ISO standard, published standard itself. So you can see they are advocating this process approach, which is taking into account some inputs, and then there's some processing happening in the center with the focus on the leadership at the center of everything, and then there are some outputs coming out of it. So if you look at the inputs carefully, there are two things we need to focus here today. One is the organization and its context under class 4. That is one of the inputs for the whole management system. So if you do the organization and its context properly, the kind of issues what we are going to understand, so then it will be giving us better preparation for the implementation and maintenance of the standard. So that is one thing. Second is important, the needs and expectations of the relevant interested parties. These two requirements are addressed in the class 4 of this particular standard, and it is all management systems have got this similar thing. Okay, and the outputs you can see customer satisfaction. If it is a EMS, it will be environmental performance improvement, and products and services from 9001 point of view. So results of QMS, it can be results of EMS, results of OHSMS, and then results of ENMS. So there are intended outcome from every management system standard. So for example, QMS, it is going to be customer satisfaction, applicable legal and other requirements. If it is EMS, it's going to be environmental performance. So that's what we are focusing on, the output part of it. But for that, the input has to be given right, so that the processing can happen with all the relevant inputs and give the required outputs. So this is a process approach in context of the organization. This COTO is nothing but, in short, you call context of the organization as COTO. Okay, so just for your understanding. So now we will go into the class. So I'm giving first a reference of 9001 standard, but you can understand it is going to be similar for other standards as well. So here I have taken the standard wordings itself. It says, as per 4.1, determine what the relevant external internal issues are for your organization. So we have to determine what are all the relevant external internal issues. There may be so many issues happening, but what we have to focus is the relevant issues which are applicable for our particular management system in question. So in this case, it's a QMS management system. So we have to see what are all the issues, internal, external, going to affect our ability to satisfy the customers, because without customer satisfaction, organization cannot progress further. So that is why the relevant word is very important. We don't want to consider all those issues and sit with so much of this, but nothing can be done. So focus on what is relevant. So relevant external internal issues are for your organization that are relevant to its strategic direction. For every organization, leadership will have a vision, and how we have to take it to the vision, there will be a mission and a strategic direction. So we'll just see about it in a little bit, but I just want to the relevant to strategic direction. So that's what we have to see. Issues can include positive and negative factors or conditions for consideration. If it is a positive issue, it is going to be an opportunity for organization, which is going to improve the performance. If it is a negative issue, it can become a risk. So currently it's only issue, but if it is not addressed, it can turn out to be a risk for the organization. So that is what we are talking about, positive and negative factors. Understanding the external context can be facilitated by considering issues arising from legal, technological, competitive, market, cultural, social, and economic environments. So these are all called PESTLE analysis. We will also talk about it a little later, but that is for the external issues because they are coming from outside. It is beyond your sphere of influence. Whereas internal issues are within your control. It's happening within your organization. So we will have a better control on our internal issues, but we should have a better preparation to face the external issues, which is not under our control. Okay. So understanding the internal context can be facilitated by considering issues related to values, culture, knowledge, and performance of the organization. So within your organization, what are all the challenges we are facing? How can we come out of it? Because it is very much under our control, so we can do that. So that is what is going to be addressed in clause 4.1 of the particular standard. So now we will see in detail what are we talking about, that strategic direction. See, leadership, the new standards talk about visionary leadership. That means a strong leadership will have a vision for the organization for a long-term future. No organization is going to exist for running for 3 years and then we wind up and then take all the profit and go. So nobody as a true leader will not think like that. He will always have a long-term vision. abstract vision where I want to see my company in 20 years time, or after my generation, how the company has to perform. So that kind of long-term vision only the organization's leadership will be thinking. That's why the leadership has been changed to visionary leadership now. So that is coming from the leadership's point of view. The future you want to create for the organization. That is what is the vision of the leaders. So now, how will you translate the vision in the organization? By having a mission statement. So remember, vision is for the customers, for the stakeholders or interested parties, whereas mission is for the employees of the organization. So to achieve the vision, the leadership has to put out a mission statement which will be followed by the employees, so to achieve the vision. So how to put this into practice? So we need to have some concrete steps. Vision is very abstract. It may not be put in lot of words, but as mission statement has to be very clear, because people have to follow the mission to achieve the vision. So that's why mission statement is for the employees, which says how to put this into practice. So once that mission statement is in place, then you need to have the strategic direction, set of decisions to reach short-term to medium-term goals. Long-term vision is there, but then you can't achieve in one step. So we need to go in phases. So there will be some phases. That's what we call strategic direction, where set of decisions to reach short to medium-term goals, which will be going towards the path of our vision. Through the employee's mission, we can achieve that. Then finally, the action plan to achieve the strategic direction, key result areas, and KPIs. These are even broken down to department level, process level, and given to all the people in the organization, so that if they do their job as per this action plan, naturally the strategic direction will be achieved and the leadership vision can be realized through the organization mission. So this is very important pyramid to understand when we talk about strategic direction for the organization. So the action plan is nothing but a strategy put into practice by breaking it up into specific actions or tasks to be carried out. Actions can be for the department head, but then the task is for individual employees. Every department, he can distribute the actions into small tasks. So they do the task, so the actions are fulfilled, and then the strategic direction is fulfilled by the organization. So this is what we are looking at in the context of the organization. So for this, we need to understand the internal external issues, which is very important. So now let us focus on this analysis of internal external issues. So how do you go about doing that? Organization to conduct SWOT analysis for internal issues. We already said the internal issues are under the control of the organization, because organization is running and the people are employed by the organization, so they have definitely a control over them, the kind of culture, the kind of behaviors in the organization, and what we can do in the organization. That's all with the leadership's control. So that's why to analyze it further, we can use this tool called SWOT analysis. So we'll see what is SWOT now. SWOT is nothing but strength, weakness, opportunity, and threat. So we'll have a slide where we will be looking at what are all the strengths, how can we do this SWOT analysis, and then what will be the benefit of doing this SWOT analysis. Strengths lead to more opportunities. If you have a strengths identified, we can leverage our strengths to take more opportunities, maybe new markets, new products. Because of our strength is in the technology, we can launch new things. Like Apple has got a strength in innovation, R&D, research and development. So they come up with cutting edge products which are followed by other people after 1 year or 2 years time, because they are always leading the pack because of their R&D. R&D is their strength. So naturally they can command premium in the market because of their strength. So we need to identify what is our strength. So that is what will lead to opportunities. Weakness in the organization, if not identified by us, it can become a threat from competition. So we need to know our weakness rather than the competition is coming under identifying the weakness, which is what we have to focus. Then pestle analysis, that is nothing but political, economical, social, technological, legal, and environmental related. That's all external to the organization. So that also has to be analyzed so that we can prepare our response to face those kind of challenges. Suppose COVID was an external issue, it came from somewhere, so we had to prepare ourselves to face that external issue. So that's what we are doing. You still 2 years still we are talking of COVID. So there are a lot of places things are happening, and there are more and more external issues coming in, like supply chain snarls because of COVID. Then adding to the problem is the Ukraine and Russia war, which is also crippling the supply chain. oil market is also collapsing because of that. So there are several external issues. So what can we do in our organization to prevent that issues coming and attacking us and becoming a risk for the organization? That's what we have to look at in the external issues point of view. The issues arising out of the above exercise, if not resolved, may or can become risk for the organization. That is the reason ISO is asking us to identify these external internal issues, monitor and review them so that it do not become a threat for the organization, and we can identify some opportunities which we can avail to progress our organization. So that is what is important. Now, in internal context, if you look at what are all the things in the organization we are facing, organizational culture. If it is a very old time organization, you will see the work culture will be totally different. The new organizations, the work culture is totally different because the leadership is also different. So people with the modern kind of leadership, they believe in transformational leadership. They believe in participative leadership. In olden times, maybe autocratic leadership or authoritative leadership was there. Because of that, the culture in the organization also will be like that. So that also we need to understand, and how can it fit to changing needs. The governance in the organization, is it one person doing everything, or is it being decentralized so decisions can be taken faster, so the growth pace also will be much faster? So that is again internal thing. Organizational structure, are there too many hierarchies in place, like manager, senior manager, junior manager, deputy manager? These are all hierarchies. So every time somebody has to approve, it goes through the entire red tape. That's why in government organization decisions take a long time, because it goes through a hierarchy of people who are to approve, and it takes a long time. Whereas in private organizations, maybe it's a flat structure, things move very fast so that they can quickly go to market, quickly get the customer satisfaction. All those things are there. So the organization structure need to be analyzed, and if any changes to be done, we have to correct it. Okay. Then current roles and responsibilities. How are the roles and responsibilities? Is it clearly defined? One person is responsible, nobody is responsible, because people think they are going to do it, he is going to do it, she is going to do it, but it will not be done. So always responsibility has to be clear cut. Only one person should be responsible for one particular activity or task. Then only we can expect and we can question him to see that why it has not been done. If it is distributed among many people, then it will get diluted and nothing will be done. That's why roles and responsibility clarity in the organization has to be very good. Strategy for the organization. We should not always have only one plan. Suppose if the plan fails, we are going to be doomed. So that's why we should have multiple strategies. Suppose if this doesn't work, we need to immediately come up with another strategy. Plan A, plan B, plan C, like that. So that our strategy is going to help us to keep focus on the direction. Some course correction can be there, but we will not lose our objective. Current capabilities. So certain technology has come, advanced technology, but we are still in the old school. So we are not having the ability, so we are going to lose out on the customer for these new products. That's why we need to understand our limitations, and that can be a weakness. We need to overcome that and invest in this R&D or technology equipment so that we are always on top of the game. Okay, resource levels. Adequately, are we having resource in terms of financial resource, human resources, and equipment infrastructure? Suppose we are going for expansion. If there is no space or infrastructure not available, it is going to be a bottleneck. So we need to understand our current resource level in terms of all these aspects. Then we have to think about it, what can be the risk out of it. Current system and tools. That's what we talk about, current capabilities. It is a physical technology, equipment, and other tools we are having. That's what we need to understand. So where we are, we can analyze. Okay. Then process maturity. Some new equipments or process we have started, it will be always in the infancy stages. Whereas certain old process we have been, experts in that field, that will be matured a lot, and we don't have to worry about it. So our focus has to be on the new products and new processes we have done. There our focus should be there, because there will be a lot of teething troubles. We need to focus on that. That's what is called process maturity. So where we need to focus. Then comes relationship with internal and external stakeholders also. How are our relationship with our suppliers? How are our relations with the employees? How is the industry relations within the organization? Too many, frictions within levels or industrial action happening, strikes happening. That's not good for the organization. We need to have a cordial relationship with the employees and stakeholders internal. then only we can realize the vision, whatever leadership has set out to do that. So these are all the internal context, very much we can control because it is all within the organization. Okay, so that's why I just put it there. So for this purpose, we are doing SWOT analysis. So what do we do here? We look at, we call all the process owners or maybe HODs, all the organizations, departments, then we have a brainstorming session. So let them come up with, everybody can do this analysis and we can collate all the information. Common information can be put together as one. Then whatever is the individual person giving a separate opinion also can be included. So we do this whole exercise with the idea of looking at what are our strengths as seen by our workforce, means managerial people, not everybody, but then we can look at the people who can contribute to the exercise and do a good brainstorming. So the strength, when we identify, these are all basically, what is that? Describe what an organization excels and what separates it from the competition. So this is our strength. Like we say in marketing, USP. When you advertise some product, you have to put the USP of the product. What is special about the product? People should understand. The customer should understand. That is what USP. Same way, what is the strength of our organization? Is it the people? Or is it the technology? Or is it the brand? Like if you talk about Tata, the brand has got 150 years strength. So people immediately think of good quality, social, welfare organization, good corporate citizen. So like that, the brand image. So same way your product, how it is doing. And then the customer base, loyal customer base, your strength. Like, people will not go whatever may happen. They will stick to this particular product only because fathers and forefathers have used it, so they got a lineage of loyalty of this particular thing. So that is again a strength. A newcomer in the market may not have this strength. They may have some other technological strength or some advanced technology they may have with them. That is a strength. So like that, everybody will have their own individual strength. We need to identify that. So leadership cannot sit and do this SWOT analysis in his office. We have to involve all the people. That also shows engagement of people. This is a very good example of engaging people to understand how the organization is feeling their strength and their weakness and opportunities and threat. So unique technology and so on. You can go on listing down. Once everybody has done, you may get like 10, 15 points on the strength. So now what will happen? These strengths have to be leveraged. That means they have to take advantage of the strength and result in opportunities. Refer to favorable external factors, product service related, that could give organization a competitive advantage. So it may result in exploring new markets. Suppose somebody says, we have not explored that particular market, we are very close and there is a lot of demand, why not we go into that market? So that may be one of the suggestions coming in the analysis. So we can look at that opportunity because we have excess capacity, we can utilize and avail new markets. Introduce new products. It is like a variant, but then if you introduce new product, there will be, our product profile also will become bigger. So basket of offering will be better. So customer can choose, then we are retaining the customer by this way, by increasing our product portfolio, adding more customers. Like, normally you launch one product, your brand becomes so famous, then you start adding more and more products into your portfolio. So the brand image is there with the customer. Imagine ITC, for example. ITC was into cigarettes. So almost 10 years or 15 years before, they moved slowly away from that to FMGG. Now they are doing all these Ashirwad products and everything. The cigarettes are almost, negligible, I would say, or 50% of that revenue. But the rest of them are coming from other products like paper, kitchen items, hotels, and other things they have launched. So that's why they have shifted using the same ITC brand because they leveraged it to other products and getting other customers and other markets. So that is what we are talking about, opportunity. How to avail the opportunity by leveraging our strength. Same way, we need to analyze our weakness. Everybody should be open to tell what is the problem in the organization openly. Then we have to encourage them. We should not hide these things because it is going found by the competition. It is going to be disastrous for us. So we need to identify it ourselves. So what are they? Stop an organization from performing at its optimum level. They are areas where the business needs to improve to remain competitive. Otherwise, competition will devour the company. A weak brand, a brand advertising is not there, so people are not knowing what is this brand. So definitely, it is not going to take off. Higher than average turnover means we are having a turnover is very high. High levels of debt. Debt is increasing means it will suck the company into the debt trap. So we have to be aware of it. Inadequate supply chain. supply chain is not adequate, means our suppliers are not enough to supply us product, and immediately if you want to jack up production, there is no supplier available to support with the raw material. So these are all the weaknesses which can pull us down. So we need to identify it ourselves, which can lead to the threat from competition. What can be there? Refer to external factors that have potential to harm the organization. By competitor launching better products, because you are delaying your launching a product because of your supply chain problem, competitor can get from somewhere else where he has got advantage, he can launch better products, quicker products to the market. Poaching of talent by competition. Many times you have seen this kind of thing, when a new company launches, they take all the people from the old experienced company by giving better compensation and all. So whole talent goes to another company. Now recently Infosys also put a clause that people cannot work in similar industries, similar projects for 2 years or so, like that. So there is going to be a case with the employees and the organization. So like that, this is very common in the industry. How can we avoid that? How to avoid attrition rate increasing? In IT industry, it is very, very high because people keep on moving and there is no loyalty to particular company. So we need to see how we can keep the employees with us, because they are the talent in the pool. We don't want to lose them. Okay, product recalls, defects, which is again negative organization. There is media awareness. People get doubtful about the product quality, then they may not come. Now what is happening in the EV industry, vehicles, there's so many fires happen, suddenly they say the demand is going down. People are skeptical about buying a two-wheeler because they don't want to sit under fire when they drive. So they are so afraid when it is going to blow up. So those kind of situations we don't want to have. So these are all the threats from competition. So now this kind of analysis we have to do as a brainstorming without criticizing anybody's idea or suggestion, so that all are welcome and you put together in this format so that we can look at what are all the issues going to come out of it. It will mainly come from the weakness and threats. If it is opportunity, it will come from the strength and opportunity. So that's how we have to identify opportunities as well as risk, which will be later addressed in the clause 6 of the standard. Okay. So now this is the SWOT analysis which we are talking about. Now that's the internal issue. We use the SWOT analysis. Now external issue, what do you do? External context, that is coming from outside, which is beyond your control, but you can prepare your response or insulate yourself from the issues coming from outside. For that, we need to understand the issues under various categories, like political, like the example, political, international outlook. How is it now? The Russia-Ukraine war is really a political issue which is causing a problem in supply chain. Many organizations are suffering. The lead times have increased because of this, and also COVID-related lockdowns again imposed by China has again put pressure on the supply chain. So like that, these are all political issues coming from outside. Then you've got economical issues, forex situation. Our rupee has been weakening against the dollar. So whenever we buy something from overseas, it's going to be expensive. If you buy locally and sell locally, it is not going to affect. But if it is a export and import, is going to be evened out. But if you import material and sell locally, we are going to be expensive because we have to pay more rupees, and then we may not realize the same kind of returns locally because we are selling locally. So these are the economical factors we need to consider: forex situation and financial stability of the company, how much of debt we have, whether banks are willing to give more loan for us for our expansion. So these are all depends on the company's standing. Okay. And then social, in which country we are operating, the cultural sensitivities, we have to be very careful. If you are in Middle East countries, they have got a particular way they celebrate Ramzan. So if you are in a kind of industry, you need to respect their sentiments. So I worked in Oman during that Ramzan period. So many changes were done to the industry, so to suit the people working in that organization. So like that, we have to be conducive for the changes because of cultural and society related particular time. So that is again external issue, how it is forced on the organization. Then technology related, that's very important because technological changes, sometimes technology changing so fast nowadays. You see every 6 months you see newer models are coming every month. In fact, earlier we used to see new models coming in maybe once in 2 years, something like that. So now the technology changes are happening so fast. If you do not keep up with the changes, you are going to lose out to the competition. So that is why we need to be aware of it. competitor environment. Again, if your competitor is coming up with a better product, better technology, he is going to take up your market share slowly. So we have to be aware of it. And then current capabilities. That's what we also saw in the internal context. If your equipments and things are not, or people knowledge level is not able to take up the new challenges, new technology, it is going to be a detrimental for the organization. So these are all from the technological challenges. Then the legal, governmental regulations. Suddenly GST has come, something else, like government regulations come in terms of environment, in terms of health and safety, some new requirements have come. So that is, again, we need to understand that what can be the issue if you do not fulfill that particular requirement. Then we need to see what risk will come to the organization. That's why legal related, what are all things. Then finally, the environmental related, natural calamities, something happening in somewhere, because of that our operations may also get affected. So we have to be aware of it. Sometimes it can be an opportunity also. In one part of the country there is a environmental situation, so you will be able to support, because your organization is in safer environment. You will be able to jack up production and help with those kind of sudden shortfalls happening in the particular region. So that's again environmental related. We see always these floods and disasters happening, earthquakes and things like that. So naturally there is a lot of potential for reconstruction and rebuilding of these things, so where you may be able to contribute. So that is again external context. That's what we call pestle analysis, which is what we saw in this entire slide. Okay, so that is the internal external issues. So ISO only is telling monitor and review them on a constant basis. If any external issue comes, you need to always log it in and see what can it do for our organization. Same way, any internal issues there, how to address it quickly and swiftly, so it doesn't become a risk for the organization. So that's why it's a constant monitoring and review of these issues are required, because they are going to be input for your risk register and also for defining the scope of the management system. So that is what is 4.1 all about. So now let's focus on the 4.2, needs and expectations of interested parties. So here you see two words are important: needs and expectation. Needs means it's a basic necessity, like roti, kapda, makan. That is very essential for living. Expectation can be a wish list, like fridge, washing machine, and air conditioning. These are all like luxuries of life. Without that also people can survive, but without roti, kapda, makan, it is very difficult to survive. So we need to understand our interested parties, including customers, regulatory agencies, suppliers. So like that, there are various interested parties. Their needs we have to definitely fulfill. The expectations, we have to see whether we can do it. Do we have the luxury to do that? Otherwise, can it become a risk? Can we mitigate the risk by doing something? That's why we need to understand that. Okay. So now again, you see here, due to their effect on the potential, due to your effect or potential effect on the organization's ability to consistently provide products and services that meet customer and applicable statutory and regulatory requirements, the organization shall determine. Shall means it's a must. So what does it say? What way it can affect the customer requirement as well as applicable statutory and regulatory requirements. So if there is a potential effect, then we need to understand the needs and expectations. We have to determine what are their needs. One is the interested parties that are relevant to the quality management system. So here we are talking QMS. If it is EMS, then again interested party, which will be our neighboring community, which will be important, and other agencies accordingly. So with the environmental management system. So like that, the interested parties that are relevant. Very important word is relevant. We don't want to talk about somebody who is not even contributing to customer satisfaction. So that's why focus should be on the particular management system we are doing and what way they are relevant. Okay. The requirements of these interested parties that are relevant to the quality management system. First, we have to see the interested parties that are relevant. Then we have to see the requirements. The requirements are nothing but needs and expectations. The organization shall monitor and review information about these interested parties and their requirements. So we need to review information about the interested party. Some suddenly new interested party may come. We need to add it to the list. Same way, somebody may be not at all, or they may out of favor, so they are not going to be in our interest. So we have to remove certain interested parties. The particular product we may not be making, so anything related to that can also be deleted. So it will be always addition, deletions will be happening. That is why we have to monitor and review them, both the interested parties and their requirements, which are needs and expectations. So now you see here only in occupational health and safety management system, The interested parties, specifically they mentioned workers, needs and expectations of workers and the interested parties. In addition to interested party, they have put a special emphasis on workers because their needs and their expectations are paramount in that particular 45,001 standard. Okay, so just highlighted. So that's the only difference. Rest everything, all standards will look for the relevant interested parties. Okay, so now let us look at this. Organization. There are so many interested parties. There are owners, stakeholders. They have got an interest in the organization. They want a good profitability, consistent profitability, as well as a good corporate image. Organization should not be involved in any kind of illegal wrongdoing. So they are going to lose face. So they will be looking at that. Parental organization, again, consistent dividend should be coming. Like government of India is expecting from public sector undertaking a proper dividend, which will fulfill the deficit which they are having. So like that, worker representatives wants a good working environment and conditions, and then worker organizations like that, customers want a good quality product at affordable price. So like that, they will have local communities, neighbors. They want the environment around the organization should be very good. They should be having a quality life there without any problems. And the non-governmental organizations, they want support from the organization in terms of various initiatives they are taking. Then OHS professionals coming from safety side, that they want all the safety precautions to be taken and trainings and other things provided. Community services as part of CAT, every public limited or listed company has to put some amount of their profits into CSR initiatives. So those people are looking for how the organization is spending that money. Like supply chain, competitors, their interest is to see that the organization is suffering in some way so they can gain the market share. That's kind of negative interest. Okay. And then governmental agencies, they want all legal regulations to be followed, so there is no penalty, and continuous revenue generation in terms of taxes and other things are coming from the organization. So like that, all are putting some kind of needs and expectations with the organization. So we need to understand them, monitor them, review them, and what if we do not meet can become a risk, and what if we meet can become an opportunity. So both ways we have to understand that. So now I tell you simply a kind of register we can maintain, which is good. It's not a mandatory document, but it is always good for the organization to maintain it like this. So you say the name of the company, logo of the company, and then the format number, because once you declare it for the management system documentation, then we need to have a control for it. That's why format number revision control should be very important. Here we are talking about interested party, who is that, whether it is internal or external, so that the internal external issue also can be addressed here. Then why we have included that, what is the relevance, that also is given in the reason for inclusion. Then what are their needs and what are their expectations. Instead of putting requirements, I would say better put need and expectation, so we can focus on the need and understand that all their needs are met, and the expectations, then maybe what is possible to meet, what is not possible, what can be the risk. So need will definitely, if you don't meet, it can be risk, but expectation, there can be a gray area. So now one by one you list them like this. Certification body is interested party, he is external to the organization. Audit for ISO compliance, issue certifications, expects to maintain risk-based QMS compliant to ISO 9001. Expect process maturity with continual improvement. Like one year you can say I don't have continual improvement, it's okay, but every year you cannot say that. But needs, definitely risk-based thinking has to be established, otherwise it can be a non-conformance. So like that, there is a fine difference between the need and expectation. So direct customer, again, high quality products, best products at least pricing. That is the expectation. We cannot give always cheap product or cheap and best for him. We also have to survive. So that's why we need to see high quality product. Definitely there is no negotiation. We have to give it. But pricing based on the market demand, raw material cost, we have to go on reviewing our pricing to be competitive and profitable. Okay. Then your employee staff, again, they are internal to the organization, directly responsible for ensuring quality manufacturing of products, delivery and service. On-time payouts, they want salary, there should not be any delay. That is definitely everybody is working for wages, so that has to be there, and conducive working environment. Otherwise, he is not going to like it. Job satisfaction, security and career prospects, that is the expectation. Everybody cannot be satisfied. So people who are good will be promoted. Others have to work for that. So there people may leave the organization, it's fine. But at least the basic necessities have to be met. So like that, end user who is using our product, direct consumer of the product. So what are her needs and expectation? Local community, what are their needs, expectations in terms of impact by our activities on the region, environment, and things like that. Okay. Then public, concerned with the complaints of labor contract representative workers, so like that, no pollution impact by the company. Then good corporate governance or no corruption. So sometimes you can't even find corruption, so it is not noticeable, so you can't do anything about it, but they expect that corruption should not be there. So that's what it is. Regulatory body, the agencies like pollution control board, income tax authorities, inspectorate of factories, all those people, they want our people, organization to meet the requirements. Then supplier, provide raw material and critical support services, meet all statutory regulatory compliance requirements on time, accurately. Then long-term relations, they want long-term relations with the organization so that they can plan their raw material, they can plan their people, employees, their future. So that's why that's the expectation from every supplier. So we have to see how we can deal with it, because we can't only rely on one supplier. We also need to look at dual sourcing. So in case one supplier is gone, but we need to have a survival tactics. So that's why it is expectation. We have to see what we need to do. Then management, from there, it's internal, direct responsibility to the management, best payouts and timely payouts, means profit dividends. Then lead time to supply and continue to customer satisfaction. They want customers should be satisfied so they can continue to sell the products. So this is just a synopsis. You can also have many more interested parties, but I just want to give you a brief of how to identify and keep records of that. So that is all about 4.2. So now this 4.3 scope is taking inputs from 4.1 and 4.2 and make the scope for the organization's management system. So that is what we are going to see. The organization shall means it's must determine the boundaries and applicability of the quality management system to establish the scope. So scope means when determining the scope, the organization shall consider. You see how many shall requirements are there in this particular class. There are so many shall. We cannot show document for everything, but we have to show evidences in some way or the other. That's why it is very important. One is they have to consider external internal issues. We just discussed in 4.1. So that is the input for making the scope. Again, within the process approach, there is a smaller process approach. 4.1 contributing to 4.3. Then the requirements of relevant interested parties as per 4.2. That is again needs and expected interested parties we have to consider. And then the products and services of the organization, what we are going to make, that also has to be very clear in the scope of the management system. We cannot just say, we will improve customer satisfaction, we will continually improve performance. That is very generic. We have to say what are the products and services we are making, so that it becomes very specific of the organization and not a generic policy or generic scope. Okay, that is why scope has to be specific with boundary and applicability. Okay, organization shall apply all the requirements of this standard if they are applicable within the determined scope of the quality management system. Suppose there are 10 classes. We know that class 1, class 2, class 3 is not a requirement. From class 4 to class 10, all the classes are applicable. Only in quality management system, there is a kind of liberty given. If some particular process is not applicable, we can basically exclude it with a proper justification. That is what is called non-applicability. For other management systems, all the classes are applicable. Only for QMS, they have given this liberty where suppose somebody is not doing design and development. So they can exclude design and development, say that we are making standard products or our customers are providing the designs and we are just making the product for them. Something like that. So certain particular classes may be not applicable based on the nature of the organization. Okay. So some organization may not be doing service. They just make the product and service is taken care by another agency, another organization. So they may not look at service as a requirement. So like that, we have to be upfront telling what we are going to make it not applicable with a proper justification. So that is what we are saying here. The scope of the organization's quality management system shall be available and be maintained as a documented information. I have underlined in bold because this is the first mandatory documentation ISO is insisting on, that we should have evidence of the scope. We can audit it, otherwise it can become a non-conformance. So it's a very important document and that is why it has to be maintained. Okay, so now you see this whole thing, the scope of QMS, and in case of EMS, it will be the scope of EMS. That's all. Everything else is going to be changed. Just the environmental point of view, what is the scope? their activities, products, and how the interaction with the environment, we have to include those things in the scope. In case of what do you call EMS, and then OHMS also like that. Okay, and then ENMS, energy management system. So what is that going to be done in terms of energy? What is the scope going to be? So the scope will be basically, the integrated management system. All the organization go for a same scope, which covers all the activities, products, and services. Only in the quality management system, we may say design and development may be excluded, or calibration, because they may not have any measuring instruments. You can exclude, or you can say calibration is not applicable for that particular management system. So otherwise, OHSMS, ENMS, and also EMS, everything, all activities have to be included in the scope of the management system. Okay, so this is what is the scope. So now come to 4.4, quality management system and its processes. So here, what are we looking at here? As per 4.4.1 of the standard, the organization shall establish, implement, maintain, and continually improve. See, there are 4 things here. First, we have to establish the system. Then we have to implement the system. Maintain means regular revision and updation of this, and continually improve. We cannot just keep the same level. We have to go for improvement. Every cycle of PDCA, we have to show improvement. That's why establish, implement, maintain, and continually improve a quality management system, including the processes needed and their interactions. So to implement this system, we need a process approach. So what are all the processes in the organization, and how are they interacting with each other? We just saw in the second slide, the whole quality management system is made as a process approach, where there is inputs coming in from outside, and then there are interaction within the processes in the organization, and the outputs are going. So same way, whatever process approach we are doing, there should be interaction between the processes. We should not have a silo approach, like, I will just focus on production, I will not bother about quality. That should not be the mentality. We should always focus on good quality production. Same way, HR should focus on, I will only recruit, and I will not bother about their competency. So that should not be this. We should recruit good quality, competent people, so that they can realize the production as per the production requirement. So that is what everybody should be having interaction, so that they can realize the vision properly. Organization shall determine the processes needed for the QMS and their application throughout the organization. This again, shall is there. They have to determine. ISO is not telling these are the processes. As per the nature of the products and services, they have to determine what are all the processes required, how are you going to realize the customer satisfaction. To the extent necessary, here again very important, you are not saying all documents are required, but to the extent necessary, they have to maintain documented information to support the operation of the processes. Suppose you got many people working in the organization, definitely the necessity is there to have a documentation for procedures. If there is only one person in the organization, maybe document is not required. So like that, to the extent necessary, the organization shall maintain documented information to support the operation of these processes, and retain document. Maintain means like a revision of documents, instructions. When I say retain, means records. Whatever processes we have carried out, we need to show evidence that it has been carried out in a planned manner. So all the records of monitoring, measuring, all those things have to be evidenced to have confidence that the processes are being carried out as planned. Whatever we planned, are they being done as planned? We need to evidence. That's why records are kept. Here you see under 9001, it says QMS and its processes, whereas other standards, it's only environmental management system, occupational health and safety management system, and energy management system. Because everybody think first to go for 9001, they set up the whole processes, then they just add on other management systems. So they don't talk about again process approach, which is already understood and implied. That's why in the first 9001 standard, we have QMS and its processes. Whereas other management system, it is just a management system. So it is understood, they will have the process approach in place. Okay. Now when I say process approach, this is what is happening. A process is nothing but a sequence of activities converting inputs into outputs by value addition. If you just give inputs as outputs, there is no process there. Always process has to add value. So when you do the process, what all things we have to consider? The inputs required and the outputs expected. When I say process, there should be some inputs coming in, and then the processing happening, and outputs exiting the process, which are better than the inputs. That's what value addition means. Like computer, we type in inputs through the keyboard and mouse. but then the CPU is processing the information and comes up with the output which is much more value addition than what we gave to the computer. So that output comes through either in the monitor or printer that we take it. So we need to understand that as a process. Then the sequence and interaction of the process is very important. We do not want back and forth process. We want always the process flow should be smooth. There's that, so that there is no wastage. Every process has to be like one process output should be input for the other process. So that way the process approach will be smooth and properly executed. So that's a sequence and interaction. They should be interactive with each other so that it becomes a effective process. Otherwise, it need to be effective because they may achieve their objective, but as a whole organization may fail. Like, individual team hitting one person hitting century, but then the team has failed to qualify. So it will be something like that. Okay, we don't want that. We want a team success so that the interaction has to be effective. Then for every process, the criteria, methods, including performance indicators. This is what I call KPI, key performance indicator. You go to a doctor, he checks your pulse, he can understand what is your physical status. So same way for every process, whether it is giving value output or not, you should have a KPI which will tell whether it is running okay or not. If it is production, I would say productivity, percentage rejection, percentage rework. These are the KPIs which will tell whether the production numbers are quality production or scrap production. Okay, that is very important. Same way for HR, how many people are leaving the organization, attrition rate. So that will determine. For maintenance, how much is the machine availability, equipment availability, how many breakdowns have happened, what is the PM compliance. So these are the indicators which will clearly tell me whether the maintenance process is effective in the organization or not. Then if you put the process, we need to put the resources required for the process, including financial resources, human resources, equipment, infrastructure, everything included. Okay. Then assign responsibility and authority. We need to put people who are going to be responsible and accountable so that you can question them if something goes wrong. If nobody is responsible, then it's going to be ayaram, gayaram, nothing will be done. So nobody can be questioned. So we need to have a clear-cut responsibilities defined and then authority so that we can question them from the accountability. Okay. Then finally, not last but not the least, risk and opportunity from the process. What can go wrong in this process? So what are all the opportunities? By having effective process, we can gain more market share, we can gain more customers. So what is the risk? Risk is what can go wrong. Like you're having a procurement process, you're relying on only one supplier. So the risk of supplier not supplying the product, then whole organization is going to stop production. So that is a risk. So if you know the risk prior, we can act accordingly to avoid that risk becoming a problem for the organization. We can mitigate the risk. So that's why for every process, we need to understand the risk and opportunities. Okay. Now, that's all four subclasses we have covered. Now, coming to the documentation requirement, we need to just understand what is that particular thing we are talking about for these four classes. Under 4.1, internal and external issues, these are to be identified, monitored, and reviewed. So here, good to maintain document and review. It's not a mandate that we are reviewing it regularly, and auditor will have confidence that everything is being identified. If you just talk in the air without any document, he can catch you through some other means, through the risk that you are not identified. That means you are not identified the external issue. So then it can become a problem. So it is good to maintain, but he cannot force you to show a document, but he can ask indirect ways so that it is better to have a document for this particular one. And the needs and expectation under 4.2, good to maintain document and review. Like we saw that register we maintain relevant interested parties, internal, external requirement, why they are relevant to our management system, what are their needs, what are the expectations. So if it is clearly identified, we can add new people when they come into the system, and then we can also update our risk and opportunity register accordingly. So that is why it is good to maintain. Again, it's not a mandatory document. Then 4.3, very important, first document of the management system. Mandatory document, which is the scope of the management system. It has to be clearly documented and kept. Even your certification has got the scope of certification, which clearly mirrors whatever scope you have mentioned in your documentation. So that is why it is. Okay, it involves boundary and other applicability, everything. Then 4.4, management system processes, because it's common for all the process. I put only management system process. Again, here mandatory documentation to the extent necessary. That word is important. If we say, I told already that one person only working in organization, you may not demand a lot of documentation. But more people are doing, it's for your own interest. You have to have a lot of documentation so that consistency can be maintained as an ISO organization. So to the extent necessary, we have to show mandatory documentation in terms of whether they are fulfilling the processes as per plan, and they have to show recorded evidence as well as documentation, instructions, everything. So this is all the documentation requirement for this particular class. Scope to be maintained as a documentary information. Scope can be part of the quality manual. Suppose the quality manual is not mandatory, but if you have a quality manual, you can put it part of the scope. Otherwise, you can keep it as a standalone document. Good to have documentation. What are they? Interested parties' needs and expectation. Like a Excel register, you can maintain and you can update it constantly and do that. Another one is register for internal external issues. Once you have done the SWOT analysis and all, you can extract the juice out of it and put it in a kind of issues, and then that will be the input for your risk mitigation plans or opportunity availing plans. Then SWOT analysis, pestle analysis, whatever we carry out, we keep it as a record so that the auditor asks, how did you arrive at these issues? You can show the SWOT analysis as an example, so that will be convincing. Okay, so this is what we talk about KOTO. I'm not only focusing on the internal external issues, the whole class 4 up to the management system processes we have covered in this particular session. Okay, and also, as I said, risk opportunity register, which is coming under class 6, but that will be taking inputs from this 4.1 and 4.2 and then put it into the register. Okay, so the good to have documentation, but all these are not mandatory, but it is better to have something so that you can evidence that you are following and doing implementation effectively. Okay, so with this I conclude my webinar on the KOTO. So now we're open for questions.
I have got few questions in the chat box from the participants, so I'll be asking them one by one.
Okay, go ahead, sir.
So the first question I have received is, how can we demonstrate the implementation of KOTO during audit?
See, the KOTO, as I said, is a contractual organization. There's an entire class 4 where we have got 4 subclasses. So how can we evidence this? One of them would be, definitely once I'm sure every organization leadership will have a vision statement and mission statement which will be made. That can be one of the strategic direction evidence we can show. And then the SWOT analysis, if they can conduct with the leadership team kind of brainstorming and then come up with a kind of SWOT analysis as an extract where all the strength, weakness seen by the employees, not only by the leadership. He also should participate, but then all others also contribute. So that gives a lot of weightage, what the whole organization thinking about the organization. So then we can take out the issues which will be transferred to the risk register, and then needs and expectation of interested parties. Here again, good to have documentation is having a kind of list with various interested parties and what is the needs and expectations spelled out in various forms you can maintain, but I just shown one of the formats. And then scope, definitely you have to show evidence of it, so that is a mandatory document. And the process mapping, as I said, to avoid wastage or too much of confusion in the process. If you have a process mapping which clearly tells what is the concept and what is it realized and how the cash from concept is realized. So that is what we call process mapping. So these are all documents, if you develop and keep, we can show this as evidence of context of the organization. Otherwise, during audit, they can find out if you have not maintained any document through other means, like considering a risk and opportunity. For example, they may find that you are having some supply chain issues because of the current Russian and Ukraine war. Then they will ask whether you identified the risk. If you say we have identified, then where is it documented or how did you mitigate that? You may not be able to show evidences. So that's why, even if it is not mandatory, it is better to keep this so that we can show evidences to auditors to satisfy them in various scenarios.
Thank you, sir.
Yes.
The next question I have got is, what is the frequency of monitoring and review of the internal and external issues?
There is again no fixed frequency. These are live documents. We don't archive them and delete them. this register internal external issues kept live, so that whenever there is a change happening, then immediately we update the issue and keep it. But as a minimum, I would say once in 6 months, just before the management review, we do this review and keep it, so that this can be discussed in the management review meeting, and then management is taking note or cognizance of the situation, and then he can allocate resources or whatever advice he can give based on the issues being shown during the review meeting. So that's why that is must once in 6 months. But otherwise, we have to update them. Don't wait for COVID came like March 2020, and then till September we have not talked about it in any of our documentation. Is going to be a problem. When the audit in September, we should at least somewhere mention that COVID as an external issue, and we have taken actions, mitigation measures to see that its impact is not felt very much in the organization. So something like that we have to see. That's why I would always advise then and there, when you see, you update it so it is a live document.
Thank you, sir.
Yes.
One more question which we have received is how to document scope if there is no quality manual requirement in ISO 9001.
Yeah, quality manual is not a mandatory requirement in the new standard. It is a nice to have or good to have document. But then if you do not have a quality manual, it's okay. But then the scope has to be like a standalone document scope of the quality management system. Like that, you give a number, document number, and then you mention it and can keep it as a separate document. Like objectives is a very important document. You may have a separate document like that. So if you don't have manual, it's ideal if you have manual, you under class 4.3 or section 4.3, you can cover the scope of the management system so that it is mirroring the standard clauses. Otherwise, you keep a standard standalone document scope of the management system and keep it under document control. So if it is revised during recertification or addition of new process, then the scope also will be going through revision. So revision control has to be maintained.
So the last question which we have received is there any specific method of conducting the SWOT analysis?
The ideal method would be to call all the leadership team. We don't want to involve everybody. It's going to be too much of chaos. So more people means more chaos. At least all the process owners, HOD should be involved there. So they should be taken off from their regular routine and put into that, so that they can, without any pressure of other departmental activities, they can focus, and then they can do a retrospection here. So they can do a kind of brainstorming. One person can moderate, so they can go on telling whatever they come to a mind. Don't have any restrictions. If you restrict the flow, then that's going to stifle creativity. So we have to open the forum. Like I would request people to have a round robin. That means one idea or one suggestion or one point you give, then he can take more time for thinking, so that the next person can come. So like that, if it goes around the room, so that everybody gets a chance, and then one person doesn't tell everything, SWOT completely. So we get alternatively, whatever comes, it has to be put on the board without questioning whether it is okay, not okay, criticizing it. Just we have to put it, so that we are encouraging people to come with more and more points. So once we have filled all the information, now we have don't have any more ideas, then we segregate what all can come under say strength, what all can come under weakness. We have a discussion and have a common agreement, and then put together and make the complete output. So that will be the team result, and not one person has made it. So that everybody will have ownership, because I also contributed. So I will have a ownership on that when we want to implement certain things. So this is the best way of doing SWOT analysis. And then whatever we are getting the juice out of it, that's what has to go into our risk and opportunity register. That is the input.
Thank you so much, sir. These were the questions which we received. So we can now conclude this particular session. I started by thanking Mr. Sitaraman sir for giving his valuable time and effort today again to be present in this webinar and sharing his knowledge about the given topic today. Context of the organization, as we all know, is a very common topic across all the standards, and the knowledge which you have shared for this particular topic will help the participants get benefited to understand all the standards in which this particular clause is covered. So I extend my gratitude again, sir, that you have taken out some time to be with us and share your knowledge on this particular topic. I hope to see you all again soon as we can. I thank all the participants as well for being an integral part of this webinar. I wish you all the best for all your future endeavors on behalf of TNV Academy. Thank you so much.
Thanks again to TNV for giving me this opportunity. It's a very nice interaction with the team, and I'm able to share whatever knowledge I had on this Koto, because it was always an abstract concept when they introduced in 2015. So we had to give this. Many organizations are struggling to see how we can implement Koto in organizations. So whatever knowledge we have gained, we have shared with you all. So hope you are benefiting with this. Thank you.
Thank you so much, sir. I request all the participants to please now leave the meeting. Thank you.